والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه ثم أما بعد. Okay, inshallah today we will go over adab al-mashi ila salah, the etiquettes of walking to the prayer. ونبدأ, we'll just start صفة الصلاة, the description of prayer. Imam ibn Qudamah rahimahullah said in his book al-Umdat, that's Umdat al-Fiqh, he said يستحب المشي إلى الصلاة بسكينة ووقار. It is recommended to walk to prayer or to the prayer with tranquility and solemnity or solemnity. Dignity. Waqar would be also dignity, tranquility and dignity. And that is exactly what the Prophet ﷺ said. فَأْتُوهَا وَعَلَيْكُمُ السَّكِينَةِ, and some reports, وَالْوَقَارِ. Then come to the prayer with sakina, tranquility, and waqar, dignity. Like, don't hurry to the prayer. Now, hurrying to the prayer, hurrying a little bit, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, and they reported this from him, that hurrying a little bit would not be condemnable if you want to catch the jama'ah or the jum'ah. You want to catch the last rak'ah of the jum'ah, then it should not be condemnable that you hurry to the last rak'ah of the jum'ah if you're afraid that you will miss the jum'ah or you will miss the last part of the jama'ah. But if you hear the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إِذَا سَمِعْتُمُ الْإِقَامَةِ, when you hear the iqamah, فلا تأتوها تسعون أو تسعون فلا تأتوها تسعون ولكن أتوها تمشون وعليكم السكينة والوقار. If you hear the iqamah, don't come to the salah hurrying, but come to the salah walking with tranquility and dignity. That's if you hear the iqamah. Now, hurrying where it is unsafe is certainly not advisable, but to hurry a little bit because you're afraid that you will miss the second ruku' of the Jum'ah, or you're afraid that you will miss the Jama'ah in its entirety, should not be commendable. It should not be condemnable. Imam Ahmad said something that is close to this as well. So the first part is walking, and we said that the Prophet ﷺ advised, and the hadith reported from Bukhari and Muslim, that we walk to the salah with tranquility and dignity. And that brings us back to the concept of what? إِنَّ اللَّهَ جَمِيلٌ يُحِبُّ الْجَمَالِ. And this is also physical beauty, the beauty of walking with beauty, talking with beauty, doing everything with beauty. It's ihsan. Husn is beauty, right? Ihsan comes from husn, and husn is a beauty. So walk with beauty. So tranquility and dignity would define what beauty is when it comes to walking. You're walking with tranquility and dignity, and that is beautiful walking. So come to the salah walking with beauty. يستحب المشي إلى الصلاة بسكينة ووقار ويقارب بين خطاه. He should take short steps. He should make his steps close to each other. Take short steps. That is not in a way that is sort of noticeable that you're trying. But he's saying, and there is no proof in terms of taking short steps from the Prophet ﷺ directly, but they extrapolated them from the fact that you will earn a reward and you will have one sayyah wiped off, and you will rise 1 degree with every step that you take to the masjid. So they're saying, don't take large steps so that you could have more steps, so that you could get more reward, and so on. But that certainly has to be done in moderation, like sensibly understood. It's not taking very short steps that are awkward. And not to interlace one's fingers. وَلَا يُشَبِّكُ أَصَابِعَهُ, not to interlace one's fingers. He would not walk to the salah like this, because when he's coming to the salah, the Prophet ﷺ said, you are in salah, so do not فَلَا تُشَبِّكْ بَيْنَ أَصَابِعِكَ, do not interlace your fingers. Which means that in salah, you should certainly not interlace your fingers. If you should not interlace your fingers while walking to the salah, you should not interlace your fingers while in salah. And interlacing the fingers that is basically discouraged in the masjid is interlacing while you're waiting for the prayer, not in the masjid period, but while you're waiting for the prayer. So after you're done with the prayer, interlacing your fingers should not be discouraged. Should not be discouraged. وَلَا يُشَبِّكْ أَصَابِعَهُ. So you're walking to the prayer, you are taking short steps, he said, and you're not interlacing your fingers. وَيَقُولْ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الذي خلقني فهو يهدين الآيات إلى قوله إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. And to say Bismillah, then recite from Surah Al-Shu'ara الذي خلقني فهو يهدين والذي هو يطعمني ويسقين وإذا مرضت فهو يشفين والذي يميتني ثم يحيين والذي يطمع أن يغفر لي خطيئتي يوم الدين, all the way until you say إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. Well, I have not found that this was traceable to the Prophet ﷺ. If you say it sometimes, that is fine. But there is something that is traceable to the Prophet ﷺ, and it is in your book, the hadith of An-Nur. Allahumma ja'al fi qalbi nuran wa fi lisani nura ila akhirih. Oh Allah, put light in my heart, put light on my tongue to the end of it. So read that hadith, and if you want to say something that the Prophet said when he was walking to the masjid, the Prophet basically said Dua an-Nur while walking to the masjid. And then Imam ibn Qudamah said, وَيَقُولُ اللَّهُمَّ إِنِّي أَسْأَلُكَ بِحَقِّ السَّائِلِينَ عَلَيْكَ وَبِحَقِّ مَمْشَايَ هَذَا فإني لم أخرج عشرا ولا بطرا ولا رياء ولا سمعة خرجت اتقاء سخطك وابتغاء مرضاتك أسألك أن تنقذني من النار وأن تغفر لي ذنوبي إنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. And this hadith has controversial basically authenticity. Some of the scholars may consider it Hasan, some of the scholars may consider it Da'if. It's controversial authenticity, so we will talk about it, and we will talk about what it means if it is actually established from the Prophet ﷺ or traceable to the Prophet ﷺ. The translation of this would be, Allahumma inni as'aluka bihaqqi as-sa'ilin alayk. Oh Allah, I ask you by the right of the petitioners on you, the right of the petitioners on you, wa bihaqqi mamshaya haya, and the right of this walk of mine. فَإِنِّي لَمْ أَخْرُجْ أَشَرًا وَلَا بَطَرًا, for I did not come out for boasting or arrogance. وَلَا سُمْعَةً, showing off. خَرَجْتُ اتِّقَاءَ سَخَطِكَ, I came out of fear from your anger. وَابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِكَ, and to seek your pleasure. أسألك أن تنقذني من النار, I ask you to save me from the fire. وأن تغفر لي ذنوبي, and forgive my sins. إنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت, for no one but you forgives sins. Where is the, all of these things you could read on your own. They don't require much like sharh or explanation. Most of this chapter anyway, you read it on your own. It doesn't require much explanation. But this particular hadith has a particular phrase that is basically subject of controversy. The implication of it is subject of controversy. What is it? Allahumma inni as'aluka bihaqqi as-sa'ilin alayk. Oh Allah, I ask you by the right of the petitioners on you. The right of the petitioners on you. Certainly this has to do with tawassul. seeking means to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or wasila to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Can you seek wasila to Allah by the people? Or can you seek the wasila of Allah by the people or their status? Or not? It's a controversial issue. And if it is about wasila, this is not about shirk and iman, by the way. The controversy here is a fiqhi controversy. So Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said that no, you do not seek wasila to Allah by the people or their right. No one has a right on Allah except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had deemed. Then whatever Allah had deemed is because of that designation by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're asking Allah by His designation of this right, not by the person or their right. And Imam Taymiyyah rahimahullah cited Imam Abu Hanifa and others from the Hanafi scholars in particular. So the Hanbalis are the ones who say that you can actually make tawassul by people and their jah and their status. That is the authorized position in the Hanbali madhhab. Ibn Taymiyyah as a Hanbali, he walked out of the authorized position of the madhhab. He certainly reported this from Imam Ahmad as a riwayah also, because he would usually do this. Whenever he walks out from the madhhab, he will be able to find something from Imam Ahmad to support his position, even if it is not the authorized position in the madhhab. And he found many, he authored an entire book, and someone as resourceful as Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, you could imagine that he was able to cite so many of the righteous predecessors in this book. But particularly as a madhhab and a founder of a madhhab, the people that will be most helpful in this regard will be the Hanafis, not the Hanbalis, will be most helpful for Ibn Taymiyyah in constructing his argument against asking Allah by people and the right of the people. How would Ibn Taymiyyah explain this, or how would this group of scholars explain this? بِحَقِّ السَّائِلِينَ عَلَيْكَ, I ask you by the right of the petitioners on you. They say حَقُّ السَّائِلِينَ الْإِجَابَةِ, the right of the petitioners is the response, ijaba. So I am asking by Allah's response and by His designation, that is one of the actions of Allah, the promise of Allah. I'm asking Allah by His promise. You promised the petitioners to respond to them. I ask you by the right of the petitioners, which is your response, not their inherent right, not the inherent right of the petitioners. Anyway, some may think it is semantics. It's not really semantics, but at the end of the day, the controversy itself does not warrant contention, does not warrant like harboring hard feelings towards other people. It is a controversial issue. And some of the scholars may believe that you can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the right of certain people or their jah or this or that, particularly the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because then you have a group of scholars who say by anyone righteous, and the group of scholars who are saying just by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his jah and his status with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a group of scholars who said you don't ask Allah by any of His creatures or the right or the status of any of His creatures. You ask Allah by His own names and attributes and His actions. I personally feel that the position of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah is safer, but I believe that this is a controversial issue. This is not an issue that would warrant condemnation or would warrant contention. Moving on. Then Imam Ibn Qudamah rahimahullah said, فَإِذَا سَمِعَ الْإِقَامَةَ لَمْ يَسْعَ إِلَيْهَا لِقَوْلِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم إِذَا أُقِيمَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَلَا تَأْتُوهَا وَأَنْتُمْ تَسْعَوْنَ وَأْتُوهَا وَأَنْتُمْ عَلَيْكُمُ السَّكِينَةُ فَمَا أَدْرَكْتُمْ فَصَلُّوا وَمَا فَاتَكُمْ فَأَتِمُّوا. If he hears the iqamah, he should not walk hurriedly to it because of the statement of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the iqamah is called, do not come to it hurriedly, come to it with tranquility. Whatever you can catch, meaning with the jama'ah, pray it, and whatever you miss, meaning of the jama'ah, complete it. And we went over this already. وَإِذَا أُقِيمَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَلَا صَلَاةَ إِلَّا الْمَكْتُوبَ. When the iqamah is called, there should be no prayer except the obligatory one. That Imam ibn Qudamah sometimes uses in his mutun the exact wording of a hadith because of the barakah of the exact wording of the hadith. This is the exact wording of a hadith reported by Muslim. إِذَا أُقِيمَتِ الصَّلَاةُ فَلَا صَلَاةَ إِلَّا الْمَكْتُوبَ. When the iqamah is called, there should be no prayer except the obligatory one. That is in a masjid that has a jama'ah, But what if it is a musalla, not a masjid, that has a jama'ah? Then it does not apply. It applies to a masjid that has a jama'ah. Like if you are at home and you're praying the sunnah before dhuhr, and two of your kids decided to make their own jama'ah for dhuhr. Do you really have to come out of your sunnah? You don't, but you may. And it is preferable if you're not going to be able to catch another jama'ah, it is preferable. But if you are in the masjid and they make the iqamah, you must come out of your sunnah and pray with them the obligatory prayer. Now, some scholars said if you are if you're sure that you'll be able to catch it with them from the beginning, and you just have you can just finish off your sunnah quickly. Don't disrupt your sunnah. Finish it off quickly and join them if you're comfortable that you'll be able to join the jama'ah from the beginning. I will come at the end. Then Imam ibn Qudamah said, وإذا أتى المسجد قدم رجله اليمنى في الدخول وقال بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله اللهم اغفر لي ذنوبي وافتح لي أبواب رحمتك. And if he comes to the masjid, if he reaches the masjid, when he arrives at the masjid, he should enter with his right foot first and say, Bismillah wa salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, Allahumma aghfir li dhunubi waftah li ababa rahmatik. In the name of Allah, and peace and blessings be on the Messenger of Allah, O Allah, forgive my sins and open for me the gates of your mercy. That you do the same thing when you come out, except that you will walk out with your left foot, and instead of saying Abwaba Rahmatik, you will say Abwaba Fadlik, the gates of your bounties or favors or graciousness, your meaning your rizq and your safety and provisions and all good things. The fadl of Allah, the bounties and the graciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of this is clear, right? No explanation needed. Then, وَإِذَا قَامَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَالَ اللَّهُ أَكْبَرُ. When he stands for the prayer, he should say Allahu Akbar. يَجْهَرُ بِهَا الْإِمَامُ وَبِسَائِرِ التَّكْبِيرِ لِيُسْمِعَ مَنْ خَلْفَهُ وَيُخْفِيهِ غَيْرُهُ. The Imam says it aloud. Likewise, the other takbirs should be said aloud by the Imam, so that those behind him can hear them. Everyone else says them to himself. So sirran does not mean that you will not be speaking, that you will be speaking in your heart. Sirran means that you're speaking to yourself. Jahran means that you are speaking to your neighbors, at least one neighbor. That will be jahr. But for the Imam, it is recommended that he raises his voice so everyone in the masjid hears. If he's unable, then someone else will convey the takbirs to the rest of the jama'ah, like Abu Bakr did with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where he was repeating the takbirs of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So وَإِذَا قَامَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَالَ اللَّهُ أَكْبَرُ. He did not say when he should stand up for the prayer, but in the Hanbali madhhab, and you know this book is a Hanbali book, we do some comparative explanation, but it is predominantly a Hanbali book. What if you learned according to the Shafi'i madhhab and you're hearing Hanbali now? This, it is not a problem. It is not a problem. You know, taking positions from different, it's called tanaqqul, basically transfer from one madhhab to another. Tanaqqul has been, you know, explicitly, the majority of the scholars allowed tanaqqul explicitly if we're talking about the four madhahib. The discussion of positions from outside of the four madhahib is a different discussion, and there are two extremes and there is a point of moderation in between them. But when it comes to the four madhahib, tanaqqul is fine. You know, basically moving from one madhab to another is fine, with certain conditions that we have talked about before, but we repeat them because they are important to be understood. With the one condition is that you will not be following the concessions wherever they are. That does not mean that you don't follow the concessions when you need them. The majority would still allow you to follow the concessions when you need the concession. But following the concessions wherever you are, حتى تصل إلى درجة الانحلال, as al-Munawi said in Fayd al-Qadir, which is basically complete laxity or recklessness or dissolution of the burden of taklif. That is not certainly, they don't say, yeah, the vast majority would be against it, even though some scholars would still allow it. Basically following every concession in every madhab, as long as they are the four madhahib of Ahl Sunnah and the authorized views of the four madhab of Ahl Sunnah. But the moderate position is that you follow the concessions only when you need them. You don't be picking, you should not be picking the positions wherever, you know, to find the easiest in every madhab. So that's one condition. The other condition is that it is a position that is of a valid mujtahid, and we're saying the four madhahib now. The discussion about positions outside of the four madhahib is a different discussion. We can say what are the, what was some other point we could talk about, the conditions that would be, that would allow us to mainstream a position from outside of the four madhahib. There are certain prerequisites, there are certain conditions for this. But within the four madhahib, tanaqqul is okay with these conditions. The third condition is that you avoid talfiq, and not any type of talfiq. Talfiq is basically what? Talfiq means patching, and talfiq means mixing. So you're mixing positions from the different madhahib. And someone may say, if I attend a Shafi'i class, I am Hanafi, I attend a Shafi'i class, or a Shafi'i attend a Maliki class, I will be confused and talfiq will undoubtedly happen. No, it will not undoubtedly happen. Imam al-Qarafi al-Maliki reported that it is the consensus of the Sahaba that someone who asked Abu Bakr and Umar may still ask Abu Hurairah and Mu'adh ibn Jabal and others without condemnation by any of the Sahaba. None of the Sahaba contested that consensus. And Imam al-Qarafi said, whoever claims that this consensus has been abrogated, let him produce the proof. Let him produce the proof. Which means what? Two things, you know. Or what do they mean by talfiq? You know, I will tell you what the majority believes the talfiq may be, and I will tell you, you know, the minority and the majority of contemporary scholars, minority of scholars traditionally, but majority of contemporary scholars, what their concept of the forbidden talfiq is. So what's the concept of forbidden talfiq for the majority of scholars in general? I'll give you an example. You ask a Shafi'i scholar, you know, women who make their hair a certain, like whatever, for their husbands, they do not particularly like the Hanbali position that you need to wipe all of your hair when you make wudu. I don't know about you, but some women are like this. So usually they love Imam Shafi'i because he said wiping any part of the hair, you do this to your hair and you're done. So they usually like it in the position of Imam Shafi'i. Wiping any part of the hair is sufficient. Then you use the position of Imam Shafi'i here, that wiping any part of the hair is sufficient, and then you use the position of Imam Abu Hanifa, that touching without lust is fine, does not break your wudu, and that's not the position of Imam Shafi'i. So you made wudu according to Imam Shafi'i, and now you broke it according to Imam Shafi'i. Do you have wudu? You made wudu according to Imam Shafi'i only, because this is only valid to Imam Shafi'i. And then you broke it. Do you have wudu? You broke it according to Imam Shafi'i. They say you don't have wudu, but many scholars, and I believe that no, this was not a requirement. This was not the spirit of the consensus of the Sahaba. I believe that you still have wudu. I believe that when you had wudu, you followed a valid mujtahid, you followed a bona fide mujtahid, and when you did not consider the non-lustful touch a nullifier of wudu, you still followed a valid mujtahid. I personally believe you have wudu. When is talfiq forbidden and obviously forbidden and should be forbidden? I'll give you two examples. They're nice examples. The first one is when someone marries without witnesses and cites Imam Malik, and without announcement and cites the majority. This person had a secret marriage, because the spirit of this is basically that marriage should not be secretive. So the Imam Malik requested the announcement so that the marriage is not secretive, or required the announcement so that the marriage is not secretive. The majority, Hanafi, Shafi'is, and Hanbalis, required the two witnesses because they felt once two people know about it, everybody else knows about it. Actually, once in our times, once one person knows about it, everybody knows about it. Yeah. So in this case, this talfiq is certainly haram. This patching, this mixing of opinions is certainly haram. Because you circumvent the objectives of the Sharia. You circumvent the foundations of the Sharia by doing this form of talfiq or mixing of opinions. When is it also certainly haram? If you're using double standard. If you're using double standard. If you're using double standard, such as what? Haqq al-Shuf'a, the right to preemption. If your neighbor wants to sell his house, you say, and you have a joint wall or a joint something, corridor or something, then you have the right to preemption. You say, I will buy it. I have the right to preempt the sale. But you have to pay the market value. You have to pay the market value. I'll buy it with the market value. This right of preemption is controversial. And then if you use it against your neighbor, and then another neighbor wants to use it against you, and then you say, no, there is no right to preemption, then that is inconsistency. That is forbidden talfiq, because you're using double standards. So that is waylun lil-mutaffifin. That is a double standard. These are the two cases where talfiq would be forbidden. You circumvented the objective of the Sharia, or you use the double standard. Otherwise, read what Zakaria al-Ansari, rahimahullah, Shafi'i, Imam Zakaria al-Ansari said in Asl al-Matalib, or Ibn Nujaym al-Misri in Bahr al-Ra'iq, who is Hanafi, and so on, about the permissibility of tanaqqul or switching madhhab. Anyway, so don't be particularly concerned. Whether you could build on what you learned before, and it is completely fine. They're all taken from the same source. Having said that, he said, وَإِذَا قَامَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَالَ اللَّهُ أَكْبَرُ. It is important in the Hanbali madhhab, he will rise to the prayer when two things happen. The muqim says, قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ, and the imam is already there. If one of these two has not happened, he does not rise to the prayer. He rises to the prayer when the muqim says, قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ, while he is seeing the imam. One is lacking, he's not rising to the prayer yet. And then they will line up and so on, and maybe Imam ibn Qudamah will discuss these issues later. But then he says, قال Allahu Akbar, he will say Allahu Akbar. He does not, keep in mind, if you want to extend or stretch any mad in Allahu Akbar, the only one that you could do this with is Allahu Akbar. If you do Allahu Akbar, that's a problem, because that means, is Allah greater? Allahu Akbar means, is Allah greater? If you say Allahu Akbar, that also means, is Allah greater? If you say Allahu Akbar, that means that's really bad, because Akbar is the plural of drum, a drum. So drums would be, Akbar is drums. So you want to stretch anything, stretch Allahu Akbar. That's the only thing that you can stretch. But you don't really need to stretch anything. Just say Allahu Akbar. But some people, some imams particularly, when in large masajid, they want the sound effects. And so if you want to stretch something, Allahu Akbar, that's what you can stretch. يجهر بها الإمام, the imam says it aloud. وبسائر التكبير, likewise the other takbirs should be said aloud by the imam, but the ma'mumin will say it to themselves. ويرفع يديه عند ابتداء التكبير. When he begins saying the takbir, he should raise his hands. حذو منكبيه أو إلى فروع أذنيه. Okay, so he's talking now about raising the hands. And raising the hands, this is universal, by the way, with takbirat al-ihram. But afterwards, you will find the distinction between the Hanafis and the Jumhur afterwards. But with takbirat al-ihram, everybody is raising their hands. يرفع يديه. And Ibn al-Munzir said that there is like a consensus on the mashru'iyya, legitimacy of رفع اليدين. So he will raise his hands. Where does he raise his hands up to? In the madhhab, it is up to here or here. And both were reported by al-Bukhari. Up to here or here. Most of the time, the Prophet raised his hands up to his shoulders, sometimes up to his earlobes. Both are reported by al-Bukhari. يرفع يديه عند ابتداء التكبير. He says here when he begins saying the takbir. So when do you raise your hands? When you begin saying the takbir, you raise your hands. In the madhhab, if you finish the takbir, you don't raise your hands anymore. The dhahab al-mahal, because it's irrelevant anymore. It is reported by, it has been reported that the Prophet ﷺ did raise his hand sometimes before, with, and after the takbir. But if you want to remember the madhhab is that you raise your hand while you're making the takbir, but once you are done with the takbir, there is no reason to raise your hands anymore. And then he puts them under his, underneath his navel or below his navel. He puts his hands after he raised his hands, and we said most of the time the Prophet raised them to the shoulders, sometimes to the earlobes. And what does he do with them? Mamdudatayn, madmumatayn. Extended, the finger should be extended in the madhhab. Mad has been reported from the Prophet ﷺ. Dam is controversial between the scholars a little bit. The position in the madhhab is that they are together. The fingers are together. So extended, this is traceable to the Prophet, and it is the madhhab. Extended. Together means like stuck to each other like this, is controversial, but it is the madhhab to put them like this. Okay? Here or here. And then he puts them under or below the navel. Below the navel, above the navel, on the chest. Where do you put them? No one is saying that this is an important issue, by the way. It is important because it's part of the deen, but it is not important in terms of priority within the deen, in terms of priority within the salah. You know, the number one priority is that you have focus, you have good niyyah, you have good khushu', you have all of that stuff. Then you need to perfect the prerequisites and the pillars. And in the Hanbali madhhab in particular, there is the so-called mandatory acts, which is a different category that's not present in any other madhhab. In the other madhhab, it's either pillars or sunnah. In the Hanbali, they have a three-tiered categorization of the actions of the prayer. But, so, first, khushu' and niyyah, and the heartful presence, hudur al-qalb. Second, the pillars and prerequisites. Third, the mandatory acts in the Hanbali madhhab. Fourth, the sunnahs, right? That makes perfect sense. And this is all sunnah. Even if you just don't put your hands on, like the common Maliki practice, even though whether it's traceable to Imam Malik authentically or not, is controversial, but the common Maliki practice, you will not be it is valid, a valid prayer. And if you have if your heart was present, your niyyah was there, and your focus was there, your prayer will be much better than someone who's obsessed with where to put his hands. So, but anyway, where to put your hands? What did the scholars say about where to put your hands? Hanafis and Hanbalis, according to the authorized view in the Hanbali madhhab, Hanafis and Hanbalis said below the navel. And there is a report from Ali radiallahu anhu about this, and then they provide tadleel and ta'leel, they provide textual proofs and they provide rational proofs. They tell you that this, like the Hanafis and Hanbalis, once they exhausted the textual proofs, they went through all the textual proofs and the fatwa of the tabi'een and so on and so forth, because they have many textual proofs, but we are not going to discuss them because once again, on the order of priorities, this is not the greatest priority. But they have textual proofs, and then they start, after they exhaust textual proofs, they start to rationalize. How do they rationalize? They will tell you that this is the position of khushu', this is the position of adab, this is the position of submission, humility, dhul, inkisar, in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Malikis will tell you, the Malikis who follow this, they'll tell you that this is the position of humility and inkisar, not this. And then the Hanafis and Hanbalis will tell you also they had izars. And in order for them to keep the izar from falling, this would be the best position to keep the izar from falling. And which is a good thing for your salah, to keep your aura covered, So they rationalize after they exhaust the textual proofs. And then the Shafi'is will say here, that's the Shafi'is, and also a report in the Hanbali madhhab, which is not the authorized report. So you could say just the Shafi'is will say here, above the surah. And they will have their textual proofs and they will have their rational proofs as well. The problem is the textual proofs on all sides have problems. Hadith Ali radiallahu anhu has Abdul Rahman al-Wasiti. He is a problem. He is a problem narrator. The other hadith of Wa'il ibn Hujr about the chest has Mu'ammar ibn Ismail, and he is a problem narrator as well. So nothing is cut and dry. Nothing is done. Nothing is finished. And in this case, when nothing is finished, just choose any position. The third riwayah in the Hanbali madhhab, choose anything. Put them anywhere, below or above, not anywhere. Below the navel or above the navel. Where did the chest come from? Chest come from some muhaddithin. The chest is not a position in any madhhab. Meaning here, the chest, this is not the position of any madhhab. So what did the Malikis say? The Malikis who say that you do put the right on the left, because the right on the left is established in the Sunnah. This hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, to put the right and the left, is established in the Sunnah. So the Malikis who say that you will still put the right on the left, they will say you put them above the navel. They will side with the Shafi'is, above the navel. The Malikis who said you put them next to you in the Faridah, they let you put them on the right on the left in the Sunnah, they still say above the navel, above the navel. Who said this? This is like muhaddithin. Muhaddithin who felt, and they are entitled to this. Like Sheikh Muhammad Hayat al-Sindi from Sind, and Sheikh al-Albani and others, they're entitled to their opinion. They're muhaddithin, they know that they feel that the Prophet said this, and once you feel the Prophet said it, that's it for you. For you. That's it for you. So when the muhaddithin feel that hadith of Wa'il ibn Hujr about putting, and which is reported by Ibn Majah, in this particular edition, that comes from Muhammad ibn Ismail, that he put them on his chest. When they feel that this addition is authentic, for them, they feel the Prophet said this, then they do, they are entitled to their position. But that's not the position in any madhhab, which is to put your right hand on the left on the chest. And given that the matter is still controversial, I put them below the navel because I'm Hanbali. So I just go with the Hanbali position until it is established. Until it is clear to me, as Imam al-Shafi'i said, when we talked about talfiq, you could add to the conditions of talfiq is that you're not certain this is not what the Prophet wanted or Allah wanted. As Imam al-Shafi'i said, ما كان لأحد تستبين له سنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن يدعها لقول أحد من الناس كائنا من كان. It is not appropriate for anyone to whom the Sunnah has become clear, to abandon it for the saying of anyone, regardless of who he is. However, for most of us, this heated debate over the authenticity of these reports, we cannot really make up our minds. And it would also be a waste of time to chase the correct position. How much time do you want to spend on this issue? Keep in mind, given the whole deen, and this is one of the etiquettes of the salah, not obligatory acts, not the pillars, given the whole deen, theology, ahkam, this and that, akhlaq, etc. How much time do you want to spend on this issue? I spent on it much more than needed in this session, but just to basically establish the concept that when it comes to these issues, don't be militant. Don't be militant. Because militancy is a problem, is a problem of a lot of religious people. And militancy is a sign of arrogance. That are you really sure that your position is the final say? Are you really sure that Imam Ahmad was not really aware of all the intricacies and subtleties of ilm al-hadith that have become this close to you? It's just completely, anyway. But put things in perspective. So for the time being, I'm putting my hands below the navel because it's the position in the madhhab. It is supported by some textual and rational proofs as well. Then he said, وَيَجْعَلْ بَصَرَهُ إِلَى مَوْضِعِ سُجُودِهِ. He should look at the site of his prostration. He should look at the site of his prostration. So he is in the salah, you're looking where? Wherever you will prostrate, wherever you will put your head. This was reported from Anas that the Prophet ﷺ used to ta'ti' ra'sahu, to nod his head down a little bit or bend his head down a little bit, not like this, certainly not like this, but humility, like this. And then he would look at the place of his prostration, wherever you will place your forehead on the ground, and that is the place of your prostration. You're doing this throughout the salah. Throughout the salah. The Malikis face the Qibla, but we're talking about the majority. You're doing this throughout the salah, and you're looking at the place of your prostration based on this hadith of Anas. And there is only one exception. According to the Shafi'is and Hanbalis, when you say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah and you point with your index finger, you're looking at that index finger, according to the Shafi'is and Hanbalis, and this is traceable to the Prophet ﷺ. So the only time you're not looking at the place of prostration, according to the Shafi'is and Hanbalis, is when you say Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah during tashahhud, and you point with your finger, and you would be looking at your index finger. Otherwise, you're looking at your place of prostration. That will bring us to the end of this. I just wanted to cover a little bit of Sifatul Salah, or the description of the prayer in this session, so that we can attempt to finish the description of prayer. Can we finish next time? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. So, I just wanted to get a head start on the description of the prayer, because it will take time. Description of the prayer is important. قل قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك